Welcome to Season 3 of The Broken Banquet. Ashley's settled in Houston. I'm still in Costa Rica. But we're both really excited about bringing you more conversations about missions. We hope you'll enjoy this episode. Hello, Ashley.
Well, hello. Okay, go ahead.
Want to try that again?
Go ahead.
Hello, Ashley.
Hello, Will. Sorry, I was so excited to say hello to you. That's why I said it quickly.
Oh, all right. Well, good. I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited.
I'm excited. I really am. This season 3, it's really the joy in my life at the moment, and I'm excited for season 3 to kick off.
Well, good. I'm happy to be a part of some joy coming into your life. I know there's a lot of joy in your life, though, even though there's bumps in the road, you know.
Yeah. Well, if the listeners have been with us for a couple of weeks, they realize that we've started this season 3, and the premise of season 3 on the Broken Banquet podcast is for Ashley to get to know some of the 146 partners of the Woodlands Methodist Church missions ministry. So thank you for coming along on this ride, Will. I really appreciate you.
I think I'm just going to call this the Real World Houston Ashley Goad edition. And we're just going to follow you around for a year as you navigate giant church and so many partners. And I'm sure you're going to go to amazing places to get to know amazing people. So thanks for bringing us along.
When people stop being polite and start being real. The real world.
Yeah.
Well, Will Bailey, it is a pleasure to introduce you to a friend, and I call her a friend because I felt like she and I were kindred spirits when we sat down to have lunch together, because yes, indeed, Will, we have shared a meal.
You shared a meal.
Tianna,
Right.
Yes.
So Tianna, you just got to go for a walk and have some drinks, and again, you will be someone who Ashley loves. So congratulations. 1 out of 3.
We are well on our way. So Tianna Johnston, I want you to meet Will Bailey. Will is one of my besties. That's what I call him because, all grown men want to be a bestie.
I love that.
And Will is he's serving in Costa Rica. He's been there for about 20 years, I think. And he and his wife, Yolanda, and daughter, Isabella, are some of my favorite people in the world. They're my family. So I wanted to introduce you two together. I love making connections. And so Tianna, meet Will. Will, meet Tianna.
Hello, Tianna.
Hey, Will. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, fun fact, when I had lunch with Tianna, her friend that was with us that also works at Every Village, he kept calling her T. So we can call her T.
Okay. Well, can we? I mean, should we ask first, or do we just assume that because someone else in her sphere calls her that it's okay for her? You might have to earn that,
Good point.
Yes, you can absolutely call me T. For some reason, people have a hard time with Tianna. I'm like, it's really not that hard, but we'll go with it. So T is what people get.
I mean, I guess if you were from Eastern North Carolina, you might get called Tianna.
Yes, that is what I get most. Or Tatiana. I've gotten.
Yeah, I think I accidentally said that. Tijuana. That's a good one. I wouldn't correct people if they started calling me Tijuana. Be like, yep, that's me.
I know. Just go with it.
Well, my first name is Josiah, and I've probably heard about 50 different iterations of that word over my lifetime. So I feel your pain. Nobody calls me Jay, though.
Then wait, why was she calling you Will?
I'm Josiah William, and I'm the 4th. So my great-grandfather went by Josiah. My grandfather went by Josiah. My dad went by Joe, and then they kind of ran out of options. So like, well, let's just call this one Will. So here we are.
That's nice.
I could start calling you Dub. You here for W?
That's true.
Yeah.
Hey, Dub.
Okay. So
that is so. All right. Well, so I met Tianna at a restaurant, and we chatted, we hit it off. I could not wait to tell you her story. I've considered it one of my favorite meetings that I've had so far, and I have said that about everybody thus far, I think. But nonetheless, it was a beautiful day, and I'm so thankful. And Tianna has a great story. So why don't we just start? I want you to introduce yourself to our listeners and to Will. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, and I want you definitely to focus on your calling to South Sudan.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess my kind of background, I actually came to know Jesus when I was 23, ripe, young, didn't grow up in the church at all. Missions was not anywhere on my radar. I was actually in an abusive marriage at the time, and so I radically met the love of Christ and just started pursuing him, running really, really hard after the Lord, and started going to a new church. And that's when they were very heavy into missions. And the executive director of every village was the pastor. So he would talk about South Sudan. And I was like, where's South Sudan? Africa, not on my radar at all. And just as you walk with Jesus and just love him, he loves missions and he loves people. And so I know I was like, oh, it's been a journey. So really getting connected to every village. But I guess I'm going to fast forward a little bit to kind of give more intro to me. So I am now married, remarried to my wonderful husband, Daniel, and I am actually expecting our first baby. Very exciting. It is our miracle baby. We have prayed for over 2 years, and God has blessed us. So we're very, very grateful. So I still actually work for every village. I get to go overseas about once a year, which is such a blessing. I'm going actually in 3 weeks. So I'm super pumped to get to go back. But I work here in Houston. I live here in Houston. I have an amazing church here in Houston. I guess what I like to do for fun is meet people. So meeting Ashley was a total joy. I'm very similar to her. We're going to meet. We're going to love each other. We're going to talk about Jesus. It's the best. And then also I love working out. That is a passion of mine. And I love encouraging women, yes, to move your body. And especially now being pregnant, that we're not fragile, that God made us to carry life. And it is such a blessing. But yeah, I just have a huge passion for working out and Jesus.
That is the best introduction I think we've ever had. Well, I want to back up. Let's just rewind. I think that's do we have that like sound ability to like do like a boing or a ding?
Why would we? You're so good at all of that.
Okay.
It'd be redundant.
Right on. Let's get out. I want to back up just a wee bit and let's talk about, I know that you spent time in South Sudan. And so can you talk about your invitation into that ministry? Let's talk about that.
So I was going to this church and they were, heavy missions minded and everything. I mean, I was a fresh baby, on passion, on fire for Jesus. And so they encourage us to pray and fast every January, ask the Lord, what does he have? And so I did. It was January of 2014. I said, Lord, what do you have? My life is yours. I give it to you. And I felt Holy Spirit say Mavolo 2015. And so I wrote it down, thought it was kind of weird, didn't know what it was. Well, then fast forward to April of 2014, it was the Every Village Gala. So we would go as a church just to support our pastor, and just missions and everything. And they announced Mavolo 2015 as an extending site for missionaries. So I'm like, sign me up. I'm a crazy single at that time, radical for the Lord. And so I'm like, yeah, let's go. I don't know anything about Africa. Don't know anything about South Sudan. But let's do it. And so I signed up, went through the process. It was quite funny to go through the interview process. And the now executive director, Andrew Brown, he was like, how do you know you hear from the Lord? And I'm just like, I just have faith. I believe that this is what God's called me to do. And I want to sign up. And so just really thankful. And it was a really good process. I kind of got held back a little bit because I had to go, since I was single, I needed to go with a team. And if anyone knows about South Sudan, it's a very hard place to get anyone to move there. And so thankfully there was already teens there on the ground. And so they actually let me go ahead of a family that was going to join us. So I got to go in August of 2015. I got to head over, dive into this mission life. Really had no idea what I was doing. Really, for every village, our missionaries were there to support the work that's already being done. So water, radio, and discipleship is our focus. And so I just got to go and be with Jesus and be the hands and feet of Jesus to the South Sudanese, teach them what it looks like to follow Christ wholeheartedly. And it was such a gift and such a blessing.
Tianna, can you give us a little bit of context for folks who might not be super aware of just kind of what's going on in South Sudan?
So South Sudan actually earned its own independence in 2011. So it is known as the world's newest nation. It is actually the most undeveloped nation still to this day. Low infrastructure, no running water, no electricity. So we're still looking at, people going to the rivers to get water or digging a hand dug well, not much medical access. Schools aren't very common, especially for girls to go to school specifically. So South Sudan is, it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. So every village was formed back in 2000 when we were known as Aid Sudan. So the founder really just felt the Lord say that he was weeping over the Sudanese people. And so this ministry was created. But then, of course, when South Sudan earned its independence, because we were always working with the southern portion of Sudan, the South Sudanese people. So we felt called to go to them. And they're, just such beautiful, they're Nilotic people. So the very tall, slender, very dark skinned, kind of known as warriors. But they're so, so beautiful once you get to know them. They live off the land. Different tribes are known for different things, like such as the Dinka. They are cattle keepers, the Dinka and the Nuer. But then also there's the Jur that are known for farmers, or they're the fishers. So it's just it's actually a pretty small nation. So the size of Texas is what the size of South Sudan is, which is pretty cool. And so we feel called specifically to work in the central to north area, which is the hardest places to reach. Most people don't work in that area. There's not lush greenery. The soil's really hard. Even drilling is hard in certain areas. And so with every village, we drill and repair water wells. We do really feel called to not just drill to help people, but also to repair them, because oftentimes they break down, 2 to 5 years. And then we also do discipleship. So we believe in really creating and implementing healthy churches. So a lot of people, they can convert and become believers, but we really want to see them grow in the truth of Jesus. And so we have Awana clubs for kids. We love seeing kids be discipled and just wanting to know the word and just seeing their hearts changed through the word. And then we also do the Jesus film. Something about every village I love is that we really partner with other ministries, and I love that so much. Just because we're all doing such great work for the kingdom, why not work together in that? And then we also do radio. So we have 4 radio stations where we air the gospel in their native language. So we disciple men and women to translate the scripture and Bible stories, but then also community development and health. Like when I lived there, there was like a cholera outbreak out in the deep village. And so we got to teach them about, washing your hands and not sharing cups or spoons, just because it will spread germs and people were dying in the masses. So as a missionary, it was such a blessing, but we got to really live there and just ask God, hey, what do you have for me? Like, what do you want to do? And so for me, kind of my background too, is I love youth. I love high schoolers. I think I can say I love high schoolers because I don't have one. Because once you have them, they're just, you become the parent. I'm the cool aunt or sister that they're like, oh, she's amazing. And so going over to South Sudan, I thought I was going to work with kids. That was, just so fun. But the Lord totally led me elsewhere, told me to go to the government hospital to pray for the sick. And so I was going to the government hospital and very lack of medical care there, like not good at all. They do have IVs. I'm thankful for that. Submedicine. HIV is very common. Tuberculosis is a very common one out there too. Malaria. The thing with malaria in South Sudan, it's actually the strongest strand. So medicine has a hard time fighting against it, but then also it's just very, very deadly. So in going to the government hospital, the Lord then led me to kind of do hospice care for moms and babies that were dying of tuberculosis and HIV. So total different route than I ever thought I was going to do. But it was such a gift.
And what's the sort of religious or spiritual situation?
So South Sudan is known as a Christian nation, but basically when it was colonized, it was broken up into several parts. So it's like the churches came together and they divided. So one area were Protestant, one was Catholic, and then one was Episcopal. But a lot of them too, they still have syncretism. So a lot is, oh yes, I am, this religion, but then I still do my traditional ways. And there's still very much so witchcraft and witch doctors and everything. And something that I learned when I lived there and understanding the culture in such a different way, as let's say, as a mom, if you're living out in the village and your child's sick and all you know is, well, this spear master is what they're called. If you bring them some kind of offering, they will say a blessing for your child and you'll do anything to get your child better. So I think there can be such a negative view of like, oh, they're, working with the devil and everything like that. But it's lack of knowledge. It's lack of truth. And lack of other resources. But it is also really cool to see how God, gave a tomato and there's so many seeds inside for them to plant later or for them to use honey for burns. I mean, it's just, there's so many different ways, or even boiling bark if you have a stomach ache. Like, it's just so, so cool.
One of my favorite questions that I like to ask, especially when we're in this kind of broken banquet, table theology language that we use, is that you spent so much time with the culture, with the Sudanese. What is something that they taught you about how you now live in your relationship with Christ, or how you now view missions? Maybe those are two separate answers too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's such a great question. The first that comes to mind, I think it's just their faith that they because their awareness of the spiritual realm, where I think here in America, we're just so blinded by so much. And there it's just, when they come to faith, they're sold. They're 100% in. And I think that's something that really challenged me, of just like, no, this is truth and God is powerful and God is real. And I loved, just living there. And I think just even feeling the presence of God because of the lack of distraction. I think that's the big thing. And, like walking to the market and I'd ask God, hey, bring me someone I haven't seen in a long time. And there's a woman walking down the road that I met at the government hospital with her, her grandson that was struggling with malaria and malnourishment, and getting to see her and say, how's your grandson doing? Because there isn't many phones, so it's not like you can just call somebody up and ask them. And they also live in deep villages. And so even that, I think just the presence of God and just seeing his nearness, I think that was definitely something that I walked away from, changed.
I wonder too, I shared with you when we were having lunch, I shared with you my one interaction that I had with South Sudanese culture. And I worked in Bel Air, Texas. I don't even know if you know this, but I worked in Bel Air, Texas for about 5 years. with a Presbyterian church, and we had a Sudanese congregation that met at our church on Sunday afternoons, made up mainly of lost boys from Sudan. And when we merged as a church with another church down the road about 3 years into my ministry there, they also had a Sudanese congregation that worshiped at their church. Now, none of us white folk ever even thought to ask the question, we're like not even 10 miles away. Why in the world are these two people groups who speak mainly the same language and are from the same country, why are they not worshiping together already? That just seems weird to me because we're not very far. Would you like to gander a guess?
Well, first of all, that just sounds a lot like our situation. Like we all look alike and worship in different churches. So I get it. And I think I know the answer to your question, but you also kind of described Sunday morning.
Well, good point. That's fine. That's fine. But one thing that we never asked as we were doing these merger talks was why were these two groups of people not worshiping together? And it turns out that they were from rival tribes. And so they did not want to worship together. So I'm wondering if you ever, Tianna, in the context of which you were in, if you ever saw the gospel supersede tribal lines.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, kind of even to give a little backstory. So, in reference to South Sudan, even became like earning its own independence, they still had years of war because of tribalism and because of their two main tribes are Dinka and Nuer. So they're actually like cousins. They look just alike. Their languages are so close, but there is a desire for the Dinka to become dominant. They want to kind of basically take over the nation. And so that causes a huge rift and a huge fighting. So like even today, our country director, Daniel Luau, he's amazing, godly man. He is Dinka. He will fly to Nuer area, but he also has to be careful just because there still is that very big like tribalism and just it's so ingrained in culture to you're representing your heritage, your family. I mean, it's just so much deeper than just I think anything that we can actually comprehend here in America. But yeah, I mean, with tribalism, the Lord just totally supersedes it all the time. And I think what we're seeing even now today, even with our men that work with us, they just have a desire for peace. They have been with years and years of fighting and war, and even the youth. We just see such a hunger for the youth to create peace. So there was actually fighting when I was there. It was between the Luo and the Dinka, and it was over their cattle, walking on their farms and everything, which I get that does offend, many people. But what happened was then the youth actually came together and said, we want peace. We don't want to fight. We're done fighting. And so we're just so thankful for that. We're seeing a change in culture, but even with our staff, I mean, I've heard story after story where, how you normally want to react because culturally it's normal to have vengeance and to, defend what you have or defend your family. But they then turn around and say, you know what, I want peace, that God calls us to be men of peace. And so they then seek reconciliation. And so we've seen it time and time again, but it's one heart being changed. And it's going to be a while for the nation for sure. But it is our hope to see it more and more.
Yeah.
I have a different question, and I'll try and ask it as graciously as possible because it's going to sound really judgy. It's not what I mean, but it is what it is. So how did you prepare, or how were you prepared? How mindful is that organization of avoiding the whole sort of white savior trap, right? And then maybe after that, like I'd like to know a little bit about the organization, the leadership that's on the ground. You already mentioned the country director that is Sudanese, which is wonderful. So can you talk a little bit just about that dynamic?
For sure. Yeah, I had to go through several months of training, psychiatric background. I mean, we had to do the whole shebang. We learned about the nation. We learned about tribalism. And I think the thing too is that you can kind of learn all you want, but until you're there and then you're with the people. And what they really encouraged us through every village was be a learner. Like, learn from these people. They have a different way of life. Because that's the thing too. I think a lot of missionaries unintentionally go over with a paternalistic mindset that we know what is right and that the way we do is correct. And if you go over with a learner mindset, culture is beautiful. It is. I love that they're so communal. I love that it's going to take them probably all day to complete something that we could probably do in maybe half a day. So but in that it's just it is the kingdom, it's the gospel. And so I do feel like every village tried to do the best they could. I think having overseas missionaries is hard, I think, as an organization. So we actually no longer send Western missionaries. We have shifted our model a lot. You learn through growing pains, which kind of feeds into the next question just about, what does every village look like now? And so we actually have 85 South Sudanese on staff, and we only have 6 here in America. And we've always, and we really did. It was 2018 when I came back from the field, and we were just kind of reevaluating, why are we doing what we're doing? Is this are we advancing the kingdom? What is our vision? What's our mission? What's our heart for the nation? And so, and also the executive director, Andrew, he stepped in as executive director, and he really shifted the mindset. God did a huge work in his heart because he lived over in Uganda with us. And so that just totally shifted his mind, which was amazing. But really saw that if we truly want to see every village, or really see South Sudan change, then every village needs to come alongside of them and empower them, the South Sudanese, because they're smart. They have the same Holy Spirit that we do. They have an amazing brains. They just don't have access to education. And so even like our water pumps, so we drill the water wells. So we actually we send our guys, the South Sudanese guys, to go get trained to be water mechanics. And so they are working alongside the government mechanics to repair these wells. And it's just, just to feel so empowered for them to know that they're the ones that can make the difference. And so every village has changed a lot. So from when I was there as a missionary, we learned a lot. Not that it was terrible by any means, but the Lord just fast-tracked what our hope was, which was the South Sudanese taking over. We always want to have more South Sudanese staff than we do Western staff, just because they're going to be the ones to change the nation and to follow Christ. So I'm pretty proud of it. I'm very, very grateful for what every village is doing and where we're at as a ministry.
That's wonderful. And I started doing what I'm doing 20 years ago, and I'm so glad that I'm not doing the things that I was doing in the same way that I was doing them in 2003. That would be scary. And thankful to have had a community around me here in Costa Rica that's been patient with me as I've grown, and to have partners who are part of this ministry and who support me and my family, who also have been patient with us as we've grown, and have been stretched and challenged and had really hard conversations with the local church and church leaders, and had to hear sometimes, hey, that thing you're doing, that's not helpful. and to not have that kind of know-it-all attitude and think, well, you don't know what you're talking about, but actually to recognize, and be thankful for that kind of truth-telling relationship that exists and helps shape us into the ministry that God wants us to be here in this place. And I think that's wonderful that you all were sensitive to that and were willing to, because I'm sure there were people who, I can imagine people who had invested probably lots and lots of time and energy and spirit into doing things in a certain way, and to have to consider the fact that there might be a better, different way is not always real easy. So congratulations.
Yeah, it's growing pains. And I think as an organization, if you're just so set on one way, you're missing the richness of the Lord. You're missing what God has. And I'm so grateful for the way that we have changed. But even allowing the South Sudanese to talk into it, to say, what do you want? What do you want this nation to look like? It's not just us. And so we really get to partner with them, which I'm thankful for.
Do you want some levity of just a little joke real quick, Will? You may
Why
have
not?
heard you may have heard Tianna say that Aid Sudan was the original name of the organization with which she works.
That's hilarious.
But then, the country became its own country, South Sudan did. So it could have been Aid South Sudan.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's not a good acronym.
Exactly.
Because I'm 5 years old, I just thought that needed to be said during the Broken Banquet podcast.
Sometimes that adjusting and growth and changing of direction for a ministry is really deep, hard, theological stuff you got to struggle through. And sometimes it's really simple, like a bad acronym.
Exactly.
Oh gosh.
So, Tianna, you mentioned partnership right there at the end, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the role that partnership plays in what you guys are doing now. Ashley and I have talked about it a lot in previous episodes, and recognizing how often partnerships aren't what they should be. And so what are the things that we can do to do better so that our partnerships are healthy and helpful for everyone involved? And so can you talk a little bit about what partnership means for you all?
Yeah, for sure. So partnership, we actually kind of work alongside, or we partnered with several ministries, just because, again, why are we going to try to reinvent the wheel? If somebody is doing it so well, why not partner with them? So I mentioned Awana Club. That's who we have come alongside with, and then also Jesus Film. And a new one, I guess it hasn't been broadcasted quite yet, but we are testing it out. We're piloting with the Bucket Ministry. So we're excited to kind of see what that can look like. You'll have to, kind of look them up and see what they do. They aren't in South Sudan. So that's also fun too, to actually connect with ministries that aren't in South Sudan. And we're like, hey, we have great connections. We have, great partnerships with churches. So come on in and bring what you can for the gospel. So we have that. And then we used to connect more with For Africa. So that was our drilling partnership. But then we actually ended up buying the drilling rig from them. But we did go through them for pump mechanic training and everything like that. And then we partner with Galcom. So that's actually where we get the solar powered radios. So they're based out of Canada. They are wonderful, wonderful ministry. That's all they do is make solar powered radios. And I think we are actually their number one purchaser. So it's super important for us to get those radios over there as much as possible. And then we also partner with World Hope. So we really believe in theological training for pastors. So I'm thankful that they have the radios. They hear the stories. They're being discipled. But also, too, we really want to see pastors grow in depth and knowledge of what is the Bible and everything. The kind of a funny thing I just loved when I lived over there, telling the South Sudanese that the Bible was actually translated for us just like blew their mind, because they just think, oh, of course it's in English. And it's like, well, no, actually it's translated for us too. And so we're learning it just as much as y'all are learning it too. So quite interesting. But yeah, we're always looking for more ministries to partner with. We actually do partner with MAF, Mission Aviation Fellowship. So they fly us in and out of South Sudan. Huge love them. Pilots are so desperately needed, especially in such desolate places. But yeah, I mean, that's the list that comes to mind currently. But we do really just believe in working together to advance the kingdom.
Well, Tianna, building off of that answer about partnership, I wonder too, because now in your role here in Houston, as you're working with Every Village, what does it look like now to also have these local churches partnering with Every Village? What does that look like for you all?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So partnership, yeah, even here in America, we do have churches. We have several churches such as the Woodlands Methodist Church, which is a huge blessing to us, that they partner with us financially, but they also sometimes we do like a run for radios, or they do like a radio mission, so that they specifically a radio rally where they want to send a bunch of radios at one time. But with church partnership, it really is that, I think it is that funding piece, but also connecting them that they're giving to the mission. We do have pastors that will fly over to South Sudan with us to teach, which is a huge, huge blessing. We actually have some coming over with us in a few weeks from the Met here in Houston. So they're going to be working on discipleship. So, yeah, I mean, I think churches, they partner with us financially, but also they can go overseas, but also us connecting their church with the mission overseas in South Sudan specifically. And just encouraging them, this is where their money's going, and this is what God's doing specifically in South Sudan.
Yeah, I think that's one of the sort of the burdens that I feel as the bridge between churches here in Costa Rica and churches in the U.S. is obviously it's, logistically, it's pretty easy for people to write a check, but it's harder to get people to feel personally connected to the community that check is going to somehow or another, support. And for us, it's a little bit easier because, we're a 2.5 or 3 hour flight from Miami. So we have a constant flow of volunteer teams coming down almost all year long. And so it's not that much of a challenge to get, sometimes entire families to come down here and spend a week with us just in the community doing different things and worshiping with the people here and praying with the people here. I realize that that's not the case everywhere. And so I wonder a lot, as much of a struggle as it is for us even to get people to feel personally connected. And there are ways that we can, but it must be exponentially more difficult when you're dealing with a situation where that's just not an option. You're not going to take 30 or 40 members of your church on a regular basis, I'm guessing, to South Sudan to just hang out with people. So, are there ways, obviously they can participate in fundraisers and that kind of stuff. Are there other things that you all are able to do that you realize really do build friendships and real relationships with the people there?
Yeah, no, I completely hear everything you're saying for sure. And that is a hard thing, especially because South Sudan is such a different world compared to here. It's not even, it's Mars to Earth. Like, it is so starkly different. And if you don't have that context, if you don't even slightly understand, it's just hard. It's hard to explain it to someone. And so it is true. That is definitely something that I think us as a development team, we're always like, how do we bridge this gap? How do we get people to understand it more? And a lot of it's stories. It's our podcast that we have. We're trying to really connect the two. But I think a lot of it's stories from the field and trying to get the personal relationship. Like, this is Teresa Jock, and she has 8 children, and she flew on her first airplane last year to go up to a wheel so she could attend a worship conference. So making the people not just a statistic of like, oh, these, look at all these terrible things that are happening in South Sudan, but it's like, but look who this beloved daughter of the king that God loves so, so much, and that we get to help her, that she doesn't have to worry about, or can her kids go to school? Well, they have a, education fund. Well, can they get medicine? They have a medical fund that they're able to be taken care of. And so it's really trying to connect people to supporters. And we do like personal videos, like every time we fly over about 4 times a year, different like staff, and we do videos. And so we try to do that as much as we can to try to get the connection. But it is still something that we're definitely working on, because it is true. Not everyone's going to go to South Sudan. I'm excited that Ashley gets to go sometime. Yes. I wish I could go with you, because it would be so fun. But baby John.
Maybe after the baby comes. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I have 2 questions. One is, what is the name of the podcast? And 2, is that what the podcast is just telling the stories or letting people tell the stories
Yeah.
I know. It's called Why South Sudan.
Yes, there you go. It is called Why South Sudan. You can find us on all of your streaming apps. And
We'll link to that in the show notes too.
oh, sweet. Great. Thank you. So, what we do is we intentionally answer just one question at a time. We do have times where we do share, like, what is God doing right now? So, that's when we get like testimonies that we just recently got from the field. So, like, a woman that had back pain for years and years went to the Jesus film, got prayed for, and she walked away not in pain. So it's like, I mean, we're hearing these miracle signs and wonders. And so we get to share these stories on there. But the podcast really is, I mean, it's a lot of, I interview certain people, mostly my executive director, and just kind of just try to share about the nation, the vision of the ministry, why we do what we do, what is our view on polygamy? Do we hire polygamists? I mean, we definitely answer hard questions and a good one.
That's not a question that we've tackled yet on the Broken Banquet podcast. And I'm sorry that as soon as you started talking about miracle signs and wonders, Ashley just got up and walked away. I'm not making a judgment call there. You can lead into whatever you want. Oh, look, she's back. Now that we're talking about polygamy, Ashley has come back.
Thanks for that. Oh my gosh. The wonders of having a little dog, a big dog. Molly has been all over this podcast, so I've kept her quiet. Oh goodness. That's wonderful. I've had the pleasure of listening to several episodes of Why South Sudan, and it's been so awesome to just rethink back to some of the boys and young men that I knew and how much more sense some of the stories made now. So it's been a beautiful thing. I'm out of breath because I just ran up and down the stairs.
Earlier when you were talking about, working out and staying in shape and all that kind of stuff, Ashley's not heard of those things.
There's an elliptical right behind this screen, and I get on it every morning. I swear I do. My office is on the second floor. I never take the elevator.
I'm proud of you, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks. What was it again? Oh, I want you, Tianna, what I've loved, you mentioned galas and fundraising things earlier. But talk about what you have done these last couple of seasons to really educate donors and just people interested in every village. Will and I were supposed to come to that, but then Will was coming in later that night and my husband ended up in the hospital. So, it was a great night had by all, but you have another one coming up. So just talk about the concept of what you're doing to raise awareness for every village.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I'm like, Will, y'all should come here to Houston and use this venue because it's amazing. So it's called an immersive dinner. So I'm like, okay, someone imagine a warehouse that you are able to project on 3 walls videos. And so this has been the best way for us to get people to feel like they're in South Sudan, to understand South Sudan without actually going. And it's been such a hit that we had the first one in April and they're like, oh my gosh, we love it. Do it again. We did it in September. They're like, oh my gosh, do it again. So now we're doing it in November. Just because it's so, oh man, it's just so rich. And it's creative. It's different. You just understand South Sudan. You see it even like when we're eating dinner, we have a basically B-roll of just this on repeat, a village scene. So like kids are going, walking their goats in the far forest. And then over here, there's kids, walking down the market and one's riding on a donkey on his cart to deliver water. Like it's trying to understand and to see what life is there. So yeah, it's been huge.
I'll try to land earlier and we'll try and keep Chris out of the hospital next time I come to Houston.
These are the things that need to happen.
Yeah.
I got the invitation for the November one and I'm waiting for 2 things to figure out and then hopefully I can say yes to that. So
yes, would love for you to go. Yeah, it's so good.
Well, Tianna, this has been a most wonderful conversation. I've enjoyed every second of it. learning more about you and learning more about every village.
Yes, it's been good. Thank y'all so much for having me. This is actually my first time being on a podcast. I host one, but now this is my first time being on one. So it's been fun.
Sorry if we've ruined it for you. Don't judge other people's podcasts by ours.
Not at all.
It was great to meet you. I'm so glad that you and Ashley are getting connected and getting to know one another, and look for chances to go for that walk and have a drink so that you can be someone she loves sooner than later. And thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. And we're so excited when you talked about baby Johnston coming. I did a little dance. And so for our our listeners out there, I want to make sure that you know that we did celebrate that, even though you can't see us. Well, thanks, Tianna. Thanks, Will. Great job. Good interviewing as always.
Bye, Ashley.
Bye, Will. You've been listening to The Broken Banquet, a podcast by Will Bailey and Ashley Goad. Music provided by Irene and the Sleepers. Join us next week for another episode. He's prepared the table. All things are ready. Come to the feast.